Not today, jackass. That's what a Florida McDonald's employee is probably thinking when she let her fist fly after a customer is reaching across the counter during an argument. You know what was it about? Straws. Watch it.
Hey, stop! Get the police. Get the police. Let her go.
I'm on it. 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 I'm not going home now. Stop him. Stop. Excuse me, sir. I'm calling the police. Man, put my phone in.
No. Fire right now.
No, you're gonna go to jail. You don't get your head
Calling you. I was just asking you.
I don't know if you caught that. He wants her fired. She says, no, you're going to jail. I think she's right again. She wasn't having it. St. Petersburg police say it began when Daniel Taylor couldn't get a straw from the condiment station and accused the employee of not doing her job. There's a new law in the city, by the way. Customers must ask for a straw at the counter if they want one. Well, Taylor didn't believe the employee when she told him, and then that confrontation, you saw it there, it escalated. In addition to the fight that was caught on camera, Taylor allegedly kicked another employee as he's leaving the building. So 40-year-old Daniel Taylor now facing 2 charges of simple battery over a straw. How about that? Let's bring in friend of the program, criminal defense attorneys and former prosecutor Mark Eiglarsh. Before we get into the legal realm, give me your reaction. Brawling, or this guy starting a fight over a straw?
Yeah, my reaction is his ego is not his amigo, and anger is 1 letter shy of danger. That's why he's facing 2 years in jail for his actions.
There you go. 2 simple battery charges. I mean, we see it play out here. We see he's the aggressor in grabbing her. What's going to be his defense?
He has no defense. It doesn't matter what the discussion was about beforehand. You cannot use physical force on someone in Florida and pretty much every state in the union unless you reasonably fear death or great bodily harm. You can clearly see he's lunging over the counter. He was the initial aggressor. He had no legal right at all to put his hands on her, and she was justified in defending herself.
Got it. Yeah, on her front. I mean, people might wonder, you know, she let him have it pretty good. Anyway, she faces a charge here.
No, because it wasn't over the top. She met his aggression with a equal force. In other words, if he let go and then she said, you know what, now I'm going to just beat him up, maybe there's some issue there. But no, he was continuing to hold on to her, and she stopped once he stopped his initial aggression towards her.
Got it. Yeah, unbelievable scene there. We'll see how that plays out on a justice front. Mark, stick around for this next story, a real tragedy. Here it is.
Eyewitnesses saw 3 teens in this SUV throwing eggs at drivers. One driver decided to go after the teens. The teens ran a red light, T-boning this truck right at the intersection. It seems relatives of the victim may have received the bad news here. A young woman yelled out in Spanish that her mother had died.
A lot of questions here with this next story. One thing's clear. Police say a 14-year-old boy is now charged with murder. How do we get there? A warning, this video is pretty tough to watch. Our affiliate KPRC reports the 14-year-old and his 2 buddies are in an SUV. They're throwing eggs at other cars. One of the drivers allegedly gets mad, chases the teen as he's allegedly flashing a gun. The 14-year-old ran a red light in the middle of this chase, hitting a car. 45-year-old woman killed at the scene. The teen, again, has been charged with murder, booked into the juvenile detention center. Police say the driver of the other vehicle has been cooperating. We're talking about the one that was chasing in the midst of all this. So let's bring back Mark, and let's start with the 14-year-old. You think that's going to be the charge at the end of the day? Murder for the 14-year-old in this?
I don't think it should be. If the facts are as you allege, the only reason why he ran the red light is because he's seeing a gun and he reasonably fears for his life. For those shaking their heads out there, look, he's responsible. There's no question he set in motion through his behavior, which was criminal, what ultimately happened. But the intervening event is that some guy with a gun is pointing, they're committing a felony against the kids, because that is not the response, an appropriate response when someone's throwing eggs legally And his running through the light was to get away because he reasonably feared for his life. I do not see how this stays a murder charge.
And real quick let's talk about the guy who did the chasing. The gun's an allegation that's being investigated. How important is that fact? And let's say that is the case. He had a gun. He chases the teens who are driving here. What kind of trouble could he be in legally?
I think he could be held responsible for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Listen, I understand why he responded. Nobody wants eggs thrown at their vehicle, but you don't get to act as judge, jury, and executioner. You don't get to pull out a gun, even in Texas, although a jury out there might disagree, when somebody's throwing eggs at you. You call it in. So you don't have incidents like this. It is reasonably foreseeable that something tragic could happen when there's guns involved.
Yeah, and what if there's no gun and he just gets PO'd and chases the kids?
He's got a problem. The 14-year-old, look, the 14-year-old's got a problem, period. I mean, you don't mess with Texas. So if this kid ran the light just to get away from him, then his conduct is reckless. And at a minimum, I think a manslaughter charge would be appropriate.
Got it. We know that we want to show everybody some video here as authorities are recreating the accident scene. How does that play in, Mark, when you look at, okay, what was going on here? Let's also say a 14-year-old shouldn't even have been behind the wheel anyway. But he's with his buddies allegedly, and they're throwing eggs. How does the accident recreation play in? Let's listen to it to give everybody a sense of what we have here. So there he goes. They recreate that, obviously simulating a high rate of speed. Tell us about that, Mark, as the investigation plays out.
You know, as we discuss this case, Mike, the investigators and prosecutors are going to discuss the case. They discuss it based upon what facts are available. An accident reconstruction is critical to understand what really happened. What are the facts? Is it consistent with what the teenagers are saying? Is it consistent with what the guy with the gun is saying? They need to know what the facts are. Based upon those facts, they determine what charges, if any, should be filed.
How about the other teens allegedly in the car throwing eggs? What kind of trouble could they be in?
Misdemeanor for throwing eggs. You know, they didn't have anything to do with ultimately driving or creating a homicide. Who I have concerns for is the 14-year-old driver, not because he shouldn't be penalized. He absolutely should face a significant penalty. However, yes, he's in juvenile court, but if he was 13, he wouldn't worry about the next thing that's about to float from my lips, and that is being 14 makes you eligible in Texas for a judge to use their discretion and file a judicial waiver to elevate him to be tried as an adult. So imagine if that were to occur. I can't take that off the table, especially because you're talking about Texas.
Wow, 14-year-old. You think that could be the end result here?
It shouldn't. I mean, the kid's brain isn't even fully formed. The portion governing the frontal lobe, governing reasoning and judgment, clearly not fully formed, as evidenced by his juvenile behavior. So I think it would be, I don't know, unfair to treat him as an adult. That doesn't mean he shouldn't be treated harshly for his actions, but as an adult for murder, that's a bit too much.
Wow. Well, we'll see how that one plays out as well. At the end of the day, a terrible tragedy as an innocent woman, 45-year-old Sylvia Savala, is killed in this accident. Mark, always good seeing you. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thanks.